What if the secret to happiness isn't about getting more, but giving more? What if true joy isn't found in chasing success, but in serving others? Welcome back to Insights Out with Dr. Jen. Today, we are tackling a question as old as time. How do we live a truly happy life? My guest today is Anne Bellavance, President of the Women's Federation for World Peace Australia, an organization dedicated to building community, empowering women, and fostering peace. What's even more remarkable, Anne does all this work entirely as a volunteer, while also working full-time and raising 4 boys. The moment you meet her, you feel it. Her calm, her peace, and her quiet joy. In this episode, we dive into the source of that happiness, Anne's life principle, living for the sake of others.
I was born with that calling to make the world a better place. And that started as a young girl in a little town in Tasmania. It rains a lot. I would go for walks with my umbrella in the nature and experience a special type of energy and longing. I think that is where that journey began. Going to the US, I guess I was looking for love. I met my husband in New York. For us, by following living for the sake of others, it gave us a pathway for happiness, actually, to find contentment in life. You realize that even yourself personally or in your family, if it's always self-centered, you're just running all the time to fill this void of where's the next me, myself, and I? Where can I get the next fulfillment or next pleasure or whatever? That's totally the wrong direction for real substantial happiness. Family was very important to me, to make a loving, happy family. The center is living for the sake of others. So it's not about me, it's about them. It's not about me, it's about my husband. Family starts with a couple. You don't live your life through your children. You live your life with your husband or your wife. We realized that we need to change to make each other happy. We are a very happy couple, and people call us the power couple. If children can see mum and dad really love each other, and they're always after each other, the children are very secure and very happy. You know, there's something magic about parenthood. Your heart expands and you're able to love more with each child. That doesn't come from us. That comes from something beyond us, from the divine. That unselfishness comes more naturally to women. Women have these very special qualities of empathy and understanding and conversation, all these soft power skills that big businesses are paying big money for. It's there. It just needs to be extended beyond your family and your children. I met Women's Federation in Canada, and I met 3 Japanese women. They were young and really beautiful and could get by in English okay, but their vision and the mission really struck me. I thought, these poor women, they've come to this country, I have to help them. When I joined Women's Fed, to me, I was fulfilling that dream. That early years of walking in the rain and feeling that spiritual energy, and also my desire to make the world a better place, if we would see the heart of each other, and then there wouldn't be fighting, there wouldn't be people taking things from each other. We really would be one human family. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than a beautiful face. Actions of how you live show to everybody the happiness that is within. And actually, the light shining out of your face and your eyes shows the happiness where you live for something greater than yourself.
Anne, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Jen.
I remember back in 2021, I sent up the volunteer application. You called me back within half an hour. That is actually my starting of volunteering work in Australia. So, for a person who never involved in the charity work before, how would you like to introduce yourself to them?
For a person who's never been in charity work, everybody volunteers somewhere. Could be helping out at your kids' sports club, helping out at your church community. The amazing thing about volunteering is because you're not doing it for money or hopefully not for power or position or ego, you're doing it out of service, then what you get back is actually spiritual energy, which you don't get back from working unless you're being altruistic in your working capacity. Raising up somebody, or I'm a teacher by trade, then I would get that energy by helping out a student who's struggling or who needs extra help, because that is also volunteering your precious time.
Excellent. It seems that you have volunteered all your life so far to something bigger than yourself, the Women Federation for World Peace Organization. Let's go back to the beginning because that's such an incredible commitment. How did you start this journey? And what make you think that is your life calling?
Well, when I was at uni in Tasmania, I actually wanted to get involved with the United Nations. You could say that I was born with that calling. And I guess that started as a young girl in a little town in Tasmania, tiny little town. Tasmania rains a lot, by the way. I would go for walks with my umbrella in the nature and experience a special type of energy and longing. So I think that is where that journey began.
Wow, that's such an incredible beginning. But how you think of United Nations?
Why? Because back then I thought the United Nations was a powerful organization to help and support people. Now I know that it's a toothless tiger and it's very political and most of the time not that effective. So I'm really glad I got involved with Women's Federation for World Peace, which is more grassroots and on the ground, and an international NGO that's doing real substantial things all over the world.
Yeah, I heard the story that Jacinta told me, your university girlfriend and also volunteering for WFWP. She said when you told her you want to go to United Nations, she doesn't believe that these things can happen. Now I know in Tasmania. So going to United Nations from Tasmania, you have to make a lot of preparation. How did you prepare that journey? You have to leave home and go into a foreign place.
It's not that big. I guess back then I started uni when I was about 18 and a half, quite young actually. So when you're younger, you don't really think through like that. I knew I had to develop certain skills. That was like a goal for me.
Okay, to achieve that goal, how did it end up with WFWP? Can you tell us your story?
I guess you get knocked, touched on the shoulder. I actually met Women's Federation in Canada. Women's Fed International was in Japan for about 4 years. When it went international in 1994, 1,600 young, energetic Japanese women went to 160 nations around the world. So that means every nation got 10. Big countries like Canada, little countries like Solomon Islands, Australia. Everyone got 10 of these Japanese women. I'm married to a Canadian, so at that time I was in Toronto actually, and I met 3 of them. They were young and really beautiful and could get by in English okay, but their vision and the mission and what they were trying to do just really struck me. And I guess that early years of walking in the rain and feeling that spiritual energy and also my desire to make the world a better place really struck me. And also, I thought these poor women, they've come to this country, I have to help them. That's how I started. I had 2 little boys back then, and then I got 2 more little boys, and I got really busy. In 2000, we came to Australia. I'm Australian, so to me, I came back, but the rest of the family weren't born here. But I stayed connected with WFWP, and then as the boys got older, I had more time. I got involved on the local advisory committee in Melbourne, and then I got tapped on the shoulder, invited to join the Australian executive leadership team, and I became the national president. And after that, I was invited to join Women's Fed International. I was appointed by our founder, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, or Mother Moon as we call her. And so I sit on the international board as president of our region, which is Oceania and Southeast Asia.
Yes, that's such a long journey.
Journeys.
Yeah.
You
I
never know.
want
You never know. You never
It sounds like, for people who don't know, it sounds like a lot of big titles, but lots of responsibilities and the work because we
Yes.
work with Anne. But Anne, I want to take you back because now when we're getting older, when we review our life, everything like very fast, 2 boys, another 2 boys, so just very fast, but it's not that fast when you actually living in that journey. I want to first go back to Tasmania. Why did you go to Canada?
Well, I first went to the US, and that's where I met my husband in New York. And he was living in England at that time, even though he's French Canadian. So for quite a few years, we had an intercontinental discussion by letters. Back then, there weren't mobiles, and telephone was really expensive. At that time, when we were engaged, I was living in Perth.
I'm curious. When you left Australia, you go to US. What is in your mind at that time? Was your parents supporting your ideas? How you finance yourself? All those practical issues? How did you plan? Or you just take a bag and you left?
Going to the US, well, I raised funds and I went there to learn. So it was a conference. I guess I was looking for love. Well, not guess. I know I was looking for love. I wanted to create a beautiful family. But I'm a learner and I learn all the time. But I don't just mean external things. I love my science and I always learn, but also internally, personal growth and understanding because I'm a reflective person. I get my energy from reflection. I don't get my energy from talking to people. So to me, learning and understanding and that development are really key to my energy, actually.
It's interesting. You get energy from inside, not outside. Where did you get this way method? Because many of us, when we were young, we want to get praised by people. Then we were so happy. We feel motivated. There are very few young people can sit there, reflect, and feel energetic. So, how did you find that?
Well, I probably didn't when I was young either, but I guess that was always there. I come from a huge family. There were 8 children, so there wasn't much time. Your voice didn't have much weight in a family like that competing. So I guess I found solace within and contentment and joy. And going for my long walks in the rain.
Not like now, the two parents focus on few kids, give them whatever they want. It looks like the kids never find themselves, never got a chance to explore inside.
Yeah, maybe they're wrapped up in cotton wool and never given time for self reflect. Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
So, my second question, while you reflect walking in the rain, how did you find out that you want to help the world to become a better place? Why did this come into your mind?
I guess it's a level of empathy and not just thinking about yourself. When you grow up in a big family, you can't just think about yourself anyway. So I guess that's one good thing of a big family. But I think that's the way I was made. It's just intuitive. What can I say? I didn't make myself like that. I think it was just part of me. I'm a very intuitive person, so I listen to that intuition. You know, you go on a path and then there's a fork, and you go one way or the other. So I took that way, which is a way of inner happiness. Always you get this spiritual energy, and with your family, and the philosophy being living for the sake of others, which is the foundation of Women's Federation and all the teachings from Father and Mother Moon. Yeah, you realize that even yourself personally or in your family, if it's always self centered, you're just running, running, running all the time to fill this void of where's the next me, myself, and I? Where can I get the next fulfillment, or where can I get the next pleasure or whatever? I mean, that's totally the wrong direction for real substantial happiness. So I guess I found by sharing myself, I found that substantial happiness, and I landed, I came home. And I just worked on developing it and living it, being a living representation rather than a showcase or carrying a flag or whatever.
How old were you when you sure you find what you need to make you happy?
Well, I met my husband when I was 24. We're blessed in when we were 26, 26 and a half. We finally got together when I was 29. Can you believe that? So, yeah, I guess around that time, learning and discovering.
By then, everything happened slowly, but nice. I sometimes think everything too fast now.
You're guided. If you listen to your intuition, you follow that guidance, and there are bumps and you make mistakes and you learn and grow.
I know your husband and you both living by the principle and the philosophy of living for the sake of others. Can you explain to us what does that mean and why you follow that?
Why I follow it? Because I'm a very spiritual person, and it's a foundation for life and spirituality. It's the same in a family. Mothers naturally do this anyway. As a mother and as a father, you naturally do it. But mothers more so if they're traditionally looking after the children more, which tends to happen because women have these very special qualities of empathy and understanding and conversation, all these soft power skills that big businesses are paying big money for. I guess for us, by following living for the sake of others, it gave us a pathway or a passage for happiness, actually, to find contentment in life, not to be running after the big bucks and things like that. But don't get me wrong, I want the bucks too. We have a very beautiful home that we built to create security for the family. We're not paupers, but it's not the most important thing in life. The important thing is your spiritual life. And that's the substantial reality for being happy and being a better person in those relationships. Not letting ego get in the way and trying to listen more to the other person, etc., etc.
Living for the sake of others, we are feeling that, oh, I should take myself first. I need to live for my own happiness first. If I'm happy, I can make people around me maybe happy. So, is there any doubt when you make a decision? Any conflicts in your life?
Oh, there were conflicts, but there's not anymore. I guess I've experienced enough to realize this is really the only way for happiness. So if you think, going back to the mother gives and sacrifices naturally to lay a foundation for the children and the family. And so does the father. But as I said before, it comes more naturally. That unselfishness comes more naturally to women. So it's there. It just needs to be extended beyond your family and your children. And if it's me, myself, and I, there's ego in there. There's, oh, I have to preserve my dignity, or I have to preserve me, or I have to have a hand raised up so people notice me. You don't. Actions speak louder than words. Actions speak louder than a beautiful face. Actions of how you live show to everybody the happiness that is within. And actually, the light shining out of your face and your eyes shows the happiness where you live for something greater than yourself. This is Asian, Dr. Jen. You should know all this. This is the Asian way of living that by looking after others, you are looked after. And it works.
Exactly.
If our Australian culture, Western culture especially, because it's very individualistic. If we could just incorporate more than that, our culture would be even so much more incredible, because Australia is such a lucky place and such a beautiful place, and what we have and multiculturalism. If we could just incorporate a little more of living for others as a way for happiness, and less me, myself, and I, and you have to fix me, it would be a much more amazing place.
Yeah, as you said, this is a ancient wisdom, not only from Asia, but I think around the world, even in the Bible, it's all about the unselfish love to other people. But because we can't do it, that's why people are teaching us generation by generation. Practice it is another thing. You may be the very few person who really did that around my life. You have worked across many countries, Australia, US, Canada. Any moments or challenges that shape your leadership style by applying this rule around the daily life?
I think the most important value to me is integrity. If I say something, I have to do it. And I'm also super organized. If something comes, I just get it done. It frees me. I don't really think about a leadership style. I'm just being me. But if there is a style that is most important, I've learned recently, actually, through our Global Women's Peace Net workshops, and that style is servant leadership. Found the name for it through one of the presenters at our workshops, Charlotte. That style of leadership is where you lift up others in their capacity and you work from behind. So as a leader, you're not really that visible. And there's a quote by a Chinese general that's summarized as, when the war is over, the troops feel they did it all themselves. So it's by lifting people up and supporting them to be fulfilled and successful in what they're doing. I guess that's the leadership style that just comes naturally to me. Moments and challenges to leadership. You see, as a person, I'm not an extrovert either. How can you be an extrovert and be a reflective person? I guess I'm an introvert. I don't need the limelight. I actually don't seek it. I'm naturally quite shy. To do public speaking and everything's been a long, long journey. So that would be definitely a challenge finding my voice and feeling that I have a voice, and most of all, feeling that people want to hear that voice. I would say they're the most challenging moments, but now I'm okay. And it's not because I practiced and made perfect. Do it until you make it. It's not that. It's something more powerful from within. Once again, it came from that spiritual energy and actually my relationship with my heavenly parent, the divine, or whatever name you want to give it, doesn't matter. There are different names different faiths have. It's still the same, that spiritual energy. So I overcame that big challenge of finding my voice and feeling that people actually want to hear that voice or can be bothered listening to that voice. That power and energy came from within, from the divine. But of course, you still can learn skills, right? You may have that power and energy, but you're a terrible presenter and you don't know how to present. So you also have to learn those skills, incorporated.
What I'm hearing is when you have your goal in life, you want to make world a better place, and you realize you need to advocate the way to be happy, living for the sake of others, all those teachings, learnings, practice. You need to get your voice heard, and that skill is a must. Then, since you are not doing for your own sake, it gives you power. You want to do it well, and you're not looking for the spotlight on you. That's even you made a mistake, you fell down, it's okay because you have a bigger goal in front of you.
You feel embarrassed, you feel ashamed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're challenges too to overcome. But if you have that spiritual connection, I think it's a lot easier. You just move on. It's a bit like a child coming in with a dirty face and having lots of fun. Do you focus on the character and the child, or do you focus on the dirty face? So falling down and stumbling is like having dirt on your face. You just wash it off and you start again. You don't make a great big deal about it.
Now you are the president of the WFWP. Your role is entirely voluntary and you have to do a full-time job to earn money. This is quite time demanding. Besides, you are raising 4 kids. Only have one. I already feel exhausted. And your 4 kids are also great, very nice people. How did you make it all?
Well, number one to me was family, right? To make a happy family. The center is living for the sake of others. So it's not about me, it's about them. It's not about me, it's about my husband. My husband and I, we have a philosophy. Using that philosophy, I read actually spiritual teaching of a couple. So there was who were matched. It was a very masculine woman and a very feminine man, and they became husband and wife. And of course, they really struggled. Then the wife said to the husband, "What type of women do you really respect and like?" He explained the type of woman, and she decided to change herself to be more like these women. And gradually, she developed. I don't actually know what kind of woman her husband admired, but I do know that she gradually changed to make her husband happy.
Wow.
So she developed, and then they became a very, very happy couple. I was lucky to hear that in the early years when I was engaged. And it had a profound impact on me because I come from this very large, rowdy family. Family was very important to me, and I wanted to build a loving, happy family. And family starts with a couple. You don't live your life through your children, you live your life with your husband or your wife. So then we talk to each other. We realized that we need to change to make each other happy. And that's the way we live together. We are a very happy couple, and people call us the power couple because my husband's really involved in not-for-profit work as well through Universal Peace Federation. When we see each other, we light up for each other. We do. And I know people see that, and it's not put on, it's real. And actually, I don't like being away from him. We don't like being apart. So people might think, oh, that's pretty boring. Well, you're just always together. But no, we really support and encourage each other. And we live in harmony and living that philosophy. So when there's a tiff or something comes up, if you're living like that, living for the sake of the other, living to make the other person happy, then that means your ego can't get in the way. And you can't have an argument trying to protect your own ego or your own self esteem or whatever. You realize that you are a couple, that you are, in a way, the representation of the divine as a couple, because Heavenly Parent is male and female, masculine and feminine. If you can come together in oneness, then you become the divine. Then, because you are a representative of that masculine attribute of God and the feminine attribute of God, you see things in a different way and you try to embody the divine within yourself and in your relationships. That's what we do, and that's how we raised our children, to give them a better start and to give them those values and the ethics. Of course, they struggle too. But if children can see mum and dad really love each other and they're always after each other, the children are very secure and very happy. And there aren't fights. Doesn't mean they didn't fight when they were young, whatever, they had to grow. The best way to instill those values is by action. Once again, children learn and look up to their parents. If their parents are living that way, then they think, well, that's the way you live. That's the way I am.
Yeah. I think being a mom needs a lot of love and patience and a lot of energy. Because myself, I always feel, wow, dealing one kid is so tiring. But how did you sustain all the energy, not only in your family first, but at the meantime, you are still running WFWP, the charity work, and then another full-time job. Where did you find all those energy? Do you ever feel tired?
Sometimes I feel tired, but I'm retired now. I just teach one day a week now. But I must say, when the children were young and I was really working full time and we were building a foundation after we came from Canada, there wasn't too much public work. There wasn't too much women's fed because we were building a foundation. So as the children got older, I had more free time to involve with Women's Federation. But really, where do you get the energy? There's something magic about parenthood. Your heart expands and you're able to love more with each child. And that doesn't come from us. That comes from something beyond us, from the divine. Also, having more than one child, actually, they entertain each other. I've got one grandson, and at the moment, that's the only child. My son actually says he's exhausting. He is exhausting because he doesn't have any siblings to play with. All he's got is mum and dad to annoy, or day and night to entertain him and not feel lonely.
Exactly. I wonder how M could handle four. Now I know the secret is kids play with themselves, so you don't need to play with them.
You have to be there, and they want you at certain times, and they'll seek you out. But most of the time, when there's more than one, they really can't be bothered. They don't really need you unless they're hurt or they're sad, or, he's not listening to me, or he won't share this with me, or whatever.
But you are always there for them as long as they
Of
need
course.
you. You mentioned that to make a happy couple, you really change to make each other happy. This sounds simple in theory, but in reality, it's much harder to do. I once heard a joke, but I think that carries some truth. There is a couple where the husband insists on squeezing every last drop of the toothpaste before throwing away the tube, but the wife is more relaxed. She just tosses it away once it's almost empty. So, this tiny difference eventually leads to constant frustration and even divorce. In marriage, small habits and personality differences can create real tension over time. So, my question is, in your daily family life, how do you decide on what thing who should change and what the change should be made? Can you give us some examples how to make the change more naturally happen and nobody in the relationship feeling like they are losing an important part of themselves?
Well, when I hear about somebody gets divorced over how they empty the toothpaste, it's actually really sad because your love should be deeper than toothpaste, for crying out loud. When I say you change for each other, it doesn't mean you change the way you empty the toothpaste. It doesn't mean you lose who you are, your character, or your spirit. It means, as an analogy, if you have a silver teapot, it gets tarnished. You clean the teapot, you shine it, and then it looks really good. We all have habits that we gain from past experiences or our family or whatever. We have good habits and not so good habits. The not so good habits grate on other people, and it can come up in the workplace. Most obvious, it comes up in the family, because family is where you connect more deeply. You can't actually hide. And it also comes up with your children. I'll give you an example. I grew up in a very large family. There were 8 children. My mother and father argued constantly. You could say they were different characters. My father was actually quite violent physically and emotionally. And today he'd be in jail. I hope he never hears this. He's 92 now. But anyway, we're okay now. Things have reconciled and people mellow. But that's the reality. And so I grew up in that environment. When you have your children, you know the saying, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's actually really true. The way you're brought up, especially in the first 7 years, determines kind of your mindset and the way you think. And so I obviously didn't want a family like my family. Grew up in Tasmania. Back then I went to matriculation. They had separate matriculation colleges. I remember seeing in the library these sort of books about life and human development and character building, just ate them alive. Read and read, so it was like food for my soul. Intuitively, I knew that it was going to be difficult with my children not to do the same thing. That's how violence is carried out generational, family violence. The children see the father being violent or the mother being violent. And if they're not careful, they just fall into the same cycle, or they think that's normal. That's how you treat each other. But I asked, because my spirit was a little more in tuned or sensitive. I definitely knew that wasn't how you treat each other. As a young mother, I guess my first 2 children suffered a bit more because they were experimenting. And my last 2 children, because they're a little bit of a gap, they benefited from that, from my experimenting. I was definitely a much more patient, caring mother to them. But my 2 older children, they're okay. When they were older, I did say to them, we joked about it, that I experimented on them. I apologized that they were the first and they had the rough end of the stick, I guess. Therefore, I really understand about the domestic violence situation, how it is really easy to fall back on what as a solution to problems. So I Reason with myself, I have to really fight that sort of quick response, violent way of acting in dealing with my children. I was aware of it, being self aware and conscious of your own actions. You really have to do that first, self reflecting, being honest with yourself where you're at, and don't beat yourself up. You just, forgive yourself, forgive those around you, and try again. You need to have conversations with people so that they understand where you're coming from and they can go on this journey with you. Getting back to the husband and wife, we had a conversation right at the very beginning that we weren't going to fight with each other in front of our children. I really hate fighting anyway. If there is a fight, I have to leave. It just brings back too many memories. And I can't actually verbally abuse my husband. I can't yell at him. A few times he's raised his voice, and I've just said, don't do that. Don't yell like that. Let's have a conversation. So we learned through that. When I mean change yourself for each other, it means you remove those bad habits of how you live. Just as a mother, when you're raising your children, you can see they're being pretty selfish to each other. You talk about share your toys or don't waste your food. It's those kind of things. That's what you do. You don't change your character or your spirit. You actually change your bad habits so that you as a person become more rounded and the other person becomes more rounded. What happens as a couple, you become rounded, three-dimensional together. It doesn't mean you have exactly the same characters or you become each other, but the sharp points that one person has, the low points the other person has, and you kind of blend in together. Of course, as you're developing in your relationship, you rub those sharp points more and change, and then you become a sphere and more harmonious.
It's not about change everything. It's about you have self-awareness. We actually have very clear idea about our own issues and purposely improving on those parts. Now I got it what you
Exactly.
mean.
Having deep conversations with each other, sharing and apologizing to each other. Work together instead of feeling you're being attacked and you have to preserve your own dignity, or most often it's pride. It's a bit like that conversation tool. Whoever's holding the conversation stick is the one sharing, then you pass it to the other person and they reflect back. So they say what you said back to clarify that they heard you properly or they interpreted properly what you said. It's going on that journey, and that takes effort, right? Because you got to pass the stick, or it becomes an imaginary stick. And you, instead of pointing the finger at the other person, saying, you did this, you did that, or you made me feel that, you actually remove you and your finger out of it and you say, I'm feeling in this and this happened. Right? Then the person sounds back and says, when this situation happened, it made you feel such and such, to make sure that there's clarity there. Because you're not yelling at each other, you're actually sharing your heart with each other, then it brings you closer. So in the relationship with my husband, it goes up and situation happens. It's usually where you've got some bad habit that's grating and annoying, right? And then it goes down. When you change and self reflect, put away your pride and apologize and share what's going in your heart, the love actually grows. Love doesn't grow in a straight line, it's little bumps and up. But it does keep growing and getting deeper when you do that, when you practice that.
Thank you. These are really very honest advice because I guess we all have been there. It's how we react and what we do afterwards. I like the conversation part. There can't be one person hurt, another person is not. Both feel very uncomfortable.
The biggest challenge is actually doing the same with your children
Mm.
because they're not aware until they're older teenagers, and that's the age they actually don't want to listen to you or hear you. So if you have developed a really good relationship when they're younger and shared the love, they trust you and they understand you, then you can share those deeper things.
Yeah, I think I talk to my son quite a lot on that part. Hopefully, it's on the right track. Through the whole conversation, I can see you at your age. Everything you shared are so inspiring, and it likes things just falling into place naturally now. But I guess everybody should do their own homework. And by that age, we will live as Confucius said, at 70, you will live your desired life naturally following the guiding principle. You don't even need to conflict. But back to younger time, I think we heard you mention once that you sacrificed for the family. You want to pursue a PhD because you love science, but to raise up for kids, I think that PhD journey went to John. Now look back. Would you regret it or there's a better way to approach that? How you guys decided who should do that PhD at that time?
Well, when I was going back to uni, John wasn't thinking about a PhD. So the choice of not pursuing my PhD was totally mine. My children don't even know yet, I guess. And do I regret? No, absolutely not. We had fun as a family. We went on adventures and we were both teachers, John and I. So we were very privileged. We had holidays. We would go out on adventures. Also, those holidays helped us renovate our house, basically rebuild our house that we were living in. And we, for about 5 or 6 years, just moved from room to room as we were renovating. There's a funny story. We built downstairs, my oldest son, he was in year 11, and it was New Year's Day. We were down there putting the tiles on in the section where the two older boys were going to live. So they had a lounge space and then two rooms off. They were helping us do the grouting and everything. Then it was all done so they could move down their new pad. It was really important because the second son, he was going into year 10. They needed space to study. And I think for them, the job was done. So they didn't really help doing anything else after that. It was sort of like a turning point. It's done. My pad is there. It's over. Though it wasn't totally over. Yeah. So that was funny. But they really did a lot of the manual labor and the holidays helped us do that.
Yeah, it sounds a lot of fun when we actually do things. I remember when I moved to Melbourne, we bought a very old house and then we moved in. We started to paint the wall ourselves. Now look back, those are the happy moments, good memories.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm wondering, any of your sons coming back saying, "Thank you, mom and dad, raise up
Yeah.
like this way"?
All of them. They say, "Thank you, mum and dad, for how you raised us." It's
That's
really a
wonderful.
treasure for us.
I think the powerful thing is the spirit. Building happy family and the way to happiness is actually what you have introduced to the whole episode.
Yeah. So there's people all around the world living this way as a philosophy at different levels because depends on their age and their development, how far they are along in their marriage. In the early years, it wasn't as smooth, I would say. You're still trying to, when you marry in your 30s, you're just starting to work out who you are, let alone raising children and your relationship as a couple. As long as you hold on to that philosophy and the mindset of gratitude as an attitude to create happiness for each other by changing your bad habits, things grow and develop. I remember thinking, going back to my childhood, you can imagine it wasn't necessarily warm and fuzzy. There wasn't a lot of love thrown around there. I used to ask myself, what is love? That's a fundamental thing. I was a teenager. We were also very poor, you can imagine, and sat with my mum, who I was very close to. We used to talk quite deeply, actually. We sat with her on our very poor lounge one day, and I said, "Do you love me?" She couldn't answer. I asked her 3 times. She couldn't even say, "Yes, of course I love you," and give me a hug. Can you believe that?
I
I
want to give
couldn't
you a hug.
believe it. I couldn't believe it. And emotionally, from that day, I cut off from my mother, actually. What is love? And then looking after my kids and doing all this and being a good mom. And then we have a beautiful home and a beautiful place out in nature. We built it. I had this vision of where I wanted to be and at. And then I realized love is expressed in different ways. People express love in different ways. So caring and serving and doing all this for my kids and making sure they knew they were loved. That was one thing I was going to do. Talk to them about this. The most important thing for me in raising my children was that they knew to the very core that they were loved. And I did okay with that because they know. They even thank us for raising them with values and raising them the way we did. They tell us. So I felt that's love. I'm expressing love to them, but do I feel it? Do I feel love? For me, it's really, really hard to feel love, even now, even from my husband, though I know he loves me. He chases after me all the time. He loves me, but to feel it is another thing. The only time I really deeply feel it is my relationship with my heavenly parent. Isn't that strange? Then the other question attached to what is love for me was, what is happiness? Because they're very connected, right? Because your happiness stems from the way you were raised. So I realized, my goodness, I am happy. I'm content. I am so content. Hey, girl, contentment is happiness. You have made it. You're there. So now John and I, we've finished building, we've put down the paths, we've kept doing things because our place was just a little weekend shack when we got it. We sit down and on beautiful evenings like tonight is going to be, we say to each other, this is our paradise, our heaven. I'm so content and so happy and grateful to my husband and to my children and to all the ladies in Women's Federation. So I'm happy.
I'm so happy for you, really. Let me hug you. Any family traditions or moments that you guys do to reflect the way you live, remind each other?
When they were younger, we went to church all the time, and there would be working bees at the church. We would always bring the whole family. The motto was, we're family, we do things together as a family. And we'd go on big adventures, always camping in a tent. It wasn't luxurious. My husband was the best Boy Scout, and being all boys, they learned all these practical things, so it was good. And when they got older, sort of their teenage years, then they would grumble and say, how come there aren't other kids there? How come we always have to come? And I'd say, we're a family, we do things as a family. That was it. They couldn't argue with that. So because I knew by them experiencing doing something beyond themselves, they would experience that energy, that spiritual energy, and it would help their spirits grow and help them become better people. But then, of course, when they reach 18, you give them more rope to hang themselves with, so to speak. They start making their own choices. But by then, the values should have already been instilled in them. And when difficulties come up, they've already got those values within themselves to guide them. Now they're big, they're all married and have some children themselves. Our biggest family celebration is at Christmas, where we go somewhere within Australia and rent a great big house with many bedrooms and bathrooms. We stay together as a family again, and an extended family, and we take turns cooking, different families, different things. And we have multicultural daughter-in-laws, so we get cuisine from different cultures, whoever is cooking that evening. That's our favorite celebration now because we actually get together.
It's so nice to talk to you, Anne. I think this podcasting journey made me reflect on myself, and I learn from you, and I share all those moments with you.
Yeah.
I'm grateful too to be able to meet you in my life. Dear listeners, I had a 2-hour conversation with Ed, and by the time you are hearing this, it's Easter, a time of reflection and renewal. I've split our talk into 2 parts. In the next episode, we will dive into how Anne lives out her philosophy through building communities and empowering others. To close this part, I'd love to share a song I wrote for Anne, Walking in the Tasmania Rain. Stay tuned and see you in the next episode.
Through crowded streets and quiet lanes, through joy and sorrow, sun and rain, she walked the path so few dare tread, with love as her compass and hope as her thread. Through the storms and through the rain, finding strength from inside. With each challenge, love remains, knowing each step planted hope far and near. Raindrops still falling like time's gentle ride, but she walks in the light of a life lived divine. Journey of the heart, steadfast and true, hands that heal, a spirit free, living for the sake of others, and is leading with heart in peace and harmony. And when the evening shadows creep and all the world is hushed to sleep, the rain still sings a tender part, a melody of love and heart.